Good morning, and welcome back to the newest episode of Social Society, Appropriation with Adi.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Last year, high schooler Kezia Dom stirred up controversy when she sported a traditional Chinese kipao to her prom. Twitter broke out in rage over her quote-unquote cultural insensitivity, with a tweet of her prom dress garnering over 100,000 likes and 16,000 retweets. Many Asian Americans and self-proclaimed social justice warriors took offense from this appropriated prom dress, citing it as being insensitive and taking away from Chinese fashion and culture. But on the other hand, masses of Americans still residing in China sided with Dom, praising her beauty and multiculturalism. This is the reality of American society today. In the American quest for plurality, our ideology has polarized into people who truly see the greatness of America's conglomeration of cultures and exchange traditions with one another, and people who try to protect purported downtrodden cultures with the wrong means, by walling minorities off from mingling with the traditions already assimilated into the greater American identity. People today don't realize that cultural appropriation is fundamental to civilization. I want you to take a look around you, wherever you're watching from. So many things that have made our lives better have once been important parts of our culture's heritage, since diffused into the larger global community. See this rug? Originally Persian. The grande cappuccino you're sipping right now? 500-year-old Yemeni concoction. Even those comfy pajamas I know you're wearing under your desk while taking video calls? Originally from India. With this little exercise, we come to the conclusion that the reason we have such advanced technology and amenities today is through cultural appropriation. If we choose to denounce technological and cultural advancements in the name of defending victimized peoples, then civilization will remain static. In modern times, we look upon costumes of another culture with disdain. We perceive them as insensitive and ignorant, being caricatures of their way of life. But we don't know what learning that could have taken place behind the scenes, so to speak. The accused appropriator could have made the costume while learning about the culture, or perhaps the person was inclined to dig deeper and learn about the culture, promoting a greater sense of understanding. When we use the words cultural appropriation as an umbrella term for all forms of mimicry, without regard to what the wearer intended or learned, it destroys the pursuit of understanding. Looking at it in that sense, we realize that if we destroy multicultural outlooks, that means that we're destroying them in an effort to be multicultural. Today, ideas travel extremely fast. Coupled with the standardization of English and widely accepted pop culture, lesser-known folk cultures are declining, facing extinction in the near future. We could lose the ideas and traditions of these cultures if we don't act soon. Cultural appropriation is the solution. Take the example of Native Americans. From feather headdresses at Coachella to stolen traditions in Boy Scouts, their modern history has been plagued with accounts of impersonation. But natives will soon have to turn to appropriation to keep their way of life from disappearing altogether. Allow me to elaborate. Native Americans have a rich heritage that can greatly bolster American culture and connection to their land, but they are at risk of dying out from isolation. If we don't incorporate them into the dominant melting pot culture of America, they will be lost forever. Although they will never again have such a profound effect on the New World as they once did centuries ago, the best we can do is elevate their stories and bring them into the tapestry of American cultures as part of who we are. Placing their culture behind glass display cases is not the solution. Cultural appropriation has received a negative connotation from previous crass, inconsiderate adoptions of customs by others. We are now an evolved society, capable of taking cultural appropriation and using it to solve today's problems. Let's debunk some of the most common myths and misconceptions about cultural appropriation, shall we? Number 1. People claim that cultures have a trademark on its items for their traditional importance. However, the majority of these cultures haven't protected the sanctity of their artifacts, nor their cultural significance. A famous example is the bindi, a traditional Indian symbol of womanhood. It has made headlines over the past decade when people from hippies to Selena Gomez wore this Hindu motif, sparking controversy. However, in a survey of 50 Indian women, not even one was able to explain the cultural significance of the bindi. Simply being born into a culture does not give you a much more significant claim on an artifact than a foreigner. Number 2. Cultural appropriation promotes the culture while hurting the people. This is simply jumping to the wrong conclusion. Many accused Elvis, the king of rock and roll, of appropriating African American music, rocketing into stardom, while his black counterparts toiled away in poverty. But imagine if he was prevented from doing so. Would that have fought racism or eradicated Jim Crow laws? Definitely not. It took a social struggle, the civil rights movement, to bring about change. This movement wasn't triggered by cultural appropriation, but rather inequality and the demand for justice. And today, we are promoting the separation and walling off of cultures in fear of appropriation. Number 3. Cultural appropriation is racist. This is simply untrue. A world without cultural appropriation would be racist, a world reminiscent of apartheid in the 20th century. What happened in Elvis's time threatens to happen again. 70 years ago, radio stations were afraid to play race music for a white audience. Today, anti-racist activists insist that white artists should not portray black subjects. It's true that cultural appropriation isn't perfect just yet. We still have to understand what is acceptable to exchange or mimic and what isn't, and for what reasons. The great debate of how we want our cultural mosaic to look rages on. After the heat dies down, right and wrong will be determined from the embers. Whether we like it or not, appropriation is the undeniable past, present, and future of our society. And with the acceptance of appropriation on the horizon, we can look forward to a day when we hold hands together, unconditionally embracing one another's diversity, bathed in the light of tomorrow's pluralism. Thank you.